Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio. My name is Michael Ryce. Jeanie will be with us in a moment. She's engaged in another call at this point. We're coming to you live from Heartland, and today we won't be doing a live show from. We've completed today. We actually finished about 30 minutes ago, and this evening we start into the next segment of our 55-day process, and that'll be a 9-day teacher training. So we just had one person who was here for the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again head out. Everybody else is staying for teacher training. So we're just on go, rock and roll, and we are celebrating Memorial Day once again. Jeannie's not at the computer. She keeps track of things like numbers. It's just not my thing. I apologize, but we are here to do is to celebrate once again Memorial Day, to memorialize and to honor those who have gone before us, who have been forced to take a life, been forced to give their lives, been maimed, been injured, brought those injuries home, and the people who were touched by it. We're here to create support. We're here to create a true celebration Memorial Day by taking on responsibility for what's going on in our lives and in the world. To begin, to look at what's our contribution to war. Is there anything you do in your world that contributes to war in the world? Oh, Michael, I don't know. What would that look like? It would look like any form of hostility or fear. Hostility and fear, I would offer, tied and associated from is the cause of war in the world. We're looking to heal war. We're opening the space to make a different energetic contribution to what's going on in our lives. And the one we're looking to do is the one that's keyed to love, to open the space to the active presence of love and move into something different. And Dr. Tim, are you there? I think Jeanie said you were on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
How are you, young man?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Awesome. You're getting ready for a support group tonight, right?
Yep, we're getting ready for a support group tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about the Aramaic Beati-tudes, Dr. Michael Ryce version and the Way of Mastery version. And yesterday when I was working with somebody, what evolved out of the session was the comment that we need to forego the protection afforded by judgment.
Mm-hmm. That was an awesome email you sent me.
I ended up doing a little blog about it, and it just has been fulfilling and enriching itself as a concept ever since it popped out in the session yesterday. And, of course, it ties right into everything you're talking about, where if I'm going to blame anybody else for anything I'm feeling, then I'm creating a trap, and I'm locking myself into the pattern of being doomed to repeat that until I'm willing to look inside myself for what I'm creating of my experience. So it's just been a lovely few days, a real joy to listen in to the intensives and get a reminder of what it's like to be there and really roll up your sleeves and do that intensive work. And we've been sitting out here on the radio and on the chat room just trying to breathe and send love to people. And so nothing else going on.
It's interesting. It's interesting what you'll be doing tonight, because we just finished about 30 minutes ago the Aramaic Beati-tudes, and so it sounds like you're just picking right up on the thoughts and carrying forward. And of course, you know what they say: great minds think alike, right?
I've heard that. That's why I held you in such high esteem.
Well, there's a challenge too, though, Tim, because they also say fools seldom differ. So we just have to decide which club we're members of, I guess.
I'm a card-carrying member of both.
Oh, cool. Well, one of the quotes we just used in the workshop that we were doing as we were completing the 9-day comes from a physicist named Jack Safati. And Jack says this: matter is gravitationally trapped light. Matter is gravitationally trapped light. And the question we did before we went into the Beati-tudes was on creating consciously. And in that particular workshop, we point out the opening words of the physicist Yeshua in the opening words of John, where what is said is, in the beginning was, well, we're told it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh, but in Aramaic what it says is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. What is it that grabs this light? What is the gravitational pull that pulls certain frequencies in? And the key becomes our thoughts, what we do with thought. You know, there's so many different ways in Aramaic that it said, ask and you will receive, sow and you will reap, sow sparingly, you will reap sparingly. It just goes on and on and on with the different ways that it says that judge, you will be judged, measured, it will be measured unto you. Let that eye be single, thy body will be filled with light, live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And people still can't figure out what was being spoken about. And the reason for that is because if the man named Yes sat in most circles where they speak about his work today, he'd say that's all Greek to me. That he was not a Greek philosopher. He thought, spoke, and taught in Aramaic, and he understood exactly how this process of physics worked. He understood exactly how the process of life worked. And what we're looking to do is to get out of the insanities of the world of hostility and fear and into the truth about who we human beings are. What's the truth of a human being? All you have to do is hold a newborn, and you know exactly what human life is about. And there are those who would like to put thumbprints upon you and take you out of your human life and lock you into something different than that. That gravitationally trapped light based in thoughts of hostility and fear, and have us engaging in the atrocities of that hostility and fear-based mind. So there's an interesting quote from a man named Voltaire. This goes back to 1694, or actually that was his birthday, but I guess it was probably into the 1700s when he offered this thought. And he said, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. We spoke that just before we finished the session Friday, but I felt it was worth in the context of what we've been doing in our intensive. It was really worth repeating that and looking at, if we believe absurd things about ourselves and others, that we're not made of the presence of love, then the atrocities we can be convinced to engage in are just outrageous. And what this work is about, whatever insanity is going on in your world, if there is any, what this work is about is restoring you to a human life, restoring you to the active presence of love, as we learn to restore ourselves to the active presence of love. It is quite literally the stuff that we humans are made of, and we're looking to get it back to the point where it is the predominant resonant energy on planet Earth. Most often we see this hostility and fear-based mind that runs the game in most people's lives, and that hostility and fear-based game is insane. When we're locked into an hostility and fear-based mind in life, we're functioning as non-humans. We've lost our contact with what human life was designed to be. And we're here to support you and assist you in being restored to that human life, to what you're designed to function as. And so we're delighted that you're joining us on the show. Dr. Kim, is there anything in particular you see? I'd like to hear more about your insight on the willingness to give up judgment and the protection that it affords, the fraud of judgment and the game that it produces for us. Would you share some more of your thoughts on that? How that came about? What happened in your in the session that?
Certainly, I was working with someone who was dealing with a father. This is an adult individual, and he was dealing with his memories of his father as being very judgmental and often looking with what my client termed a look of disgust on his face. And my client interpreted that as his father being disgusted with him.
Right.
So we were working with that, and he came to an aha moment where he realized, and he said out loud to me, I am constantly judging people and then getting that look on my own face as though I'm disgusted with them. And he felt...
Oh my God, a power person dynamic.
Yeah. And he felt very, very intensely about that realization. And he started to have a flood of thoughts about the recent and distant past where he has judged others. And as we did...
As he perceived his father judging him.
Correctly. Yeah, absolutely. And holding that sense of these people are disgusting, and he came up with the realization that it was in his mind because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which was what he kept thinking. That's why his father is disgusted with him, because he wasn't doing what his father wanted him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wrote some things down for him to hold on to that key insight so he could look at it, when he wasn't here. And then it just came out of me to tell him that what he's talking about is the protection afforded by judgment. And I had to repeat it several times and then explain before he got any idea what it was talking about. But we were able to help him see that every time he judges someone else, he has his focus on them. That means he doesn't have to deal with what's going on inside of himself. That's the first step. The second step is that whenever I judge someone as being bad or wrong because they're doing or saying something, all that means is I'm holding judgments about myself for doing those things that I have not dismantled.
Right.
Because if I didn't hold judgments against myself for those things, it would not bother me to see it in someone else.
Right.
If it isn't within me to be resonated, then I don't feel it.
Right.
So for both
the apparent protection afforded by judgment.
Yes.
Because it is just an appearance of protection.
Yes. And it just protects me temporarily from facing what I have to face within myself in order to grow and heal. So I ended up writing it that way in the blog, that in order to grow and heal, I must forego the protection afforded by judgment.
Cool.
And it's been rippling through a number of different interactions with other people ever since then. But it's just more of the insight into how I use resistance and so-called coping skills to block from myself the work I need to do in order to grow and heal.
Right.
And I'm calling it coping skills, but really they're just imprisonment techniques. It's how I keep myself stuck in the same rut, repeating the same unproductive dynamics.
Exactly. And again, it's an apparent protection because it really isn't protecting us from it at all. All that's happening is it's resonating, and I'm using that hostility and fear to keep it hidden from myself so that I can keep playing the same old game.
Right, so I stay stuck in the pattern.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds like a really nice piece of the puzzle to offer somebody.
Yeah, it was very powerful.
Cool.
And of course, it was probably...
What work you do, sir?
It was probably deeply motivated and inspired by the work that I've been listening to in your intensive these past few days, which has been quite powerful.
It has been awesome. I mean, the shift in the intensive in the last 2 days has just been fabulous. What everybody's been dealing with, what's been coming up. And, of course, the idea of an intensive is to stir things and get those things moving that are hidden so that we have the opportunity to look them square in the face and change them. And so there has been lots of process going on. And, you know, what most of us have been taught to do with that is just resist it and pretend it isn't there, and deny it, don't want to deal with it, don't want to feel it, don't want to look at it. Sure don't want to have to face it squarely. So this work, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us on the show, is about the willingness to face those parts of ourselves. It's about the willingness to deal with those parts of ourselves and to work through those parts of ourselves that are so challenging to move and to heal. Joe, are you with us? I was just looking in the chat room and seeing that Joe was there, but I guess he's not on the phone. So, by the way, just so if there's anybody up in the Chicago area, Dr. Tim has got a support group tonight at Crystal Lake, just outside of Chicago, in Illinois. Anybody that's ready to take your work to the next level, be there or be square. Tell us where it is, Tim.
It's in the back of the Court Architecture Building in downtown Crystal Lake. It's the address is 135 Beardsley, and it's quite a nice little room. It's being hosted by the Unity Church in Crystal Lake, and that's the room they have their youth group in on Sundays. So, and they're very, very gracious hosts, and they provide a number of people from their church who come on a regular basis. So I mean, I was going to just tie in with what you were talking about with the Beatitudes. One of the ones we're going to look at tonight is "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." And from the King James Version, that's what it says. And the new translation that's offered through the Way of Mastery person is, "Restored are they who allow their inner pain to surface." And that's what we were just talking about. I need to be able to look into the stuck places in my mind and allow the inner pain to surface. They shall touch the place where love carries them to greater wholeness. That's his interpretation of the second beatitude.
Oh, right on track. That's it. And in the Khaboris, and of course, the Aramaic is a very small language, made up of very few words, and so context and punctuation, there are lots of things that contribute to understanding what it says in many directions you can come to it from. And the translation that we just finished sharing with everyone in our class comes out of the Khaboris manuscript. And what that beatitude says in the Khaboris is a latent neural structure implanted by God to guide you to happiness and well-being, that would fit with your translation that says restored. We'd be restored to that. It becomes our conscious possession. You who love truth, who look into your errors in thought and the errors of your society. This is an identical idea. It perhaps states it a little further that when we're willing to look into the errors that we've created, that thing that the physicists tell us creates matter, gravitational pull of light, is when we engage in mind energy that is of error, or we buy into the society's error, then we get lost in an insane world. And what it says, if you love truth, look into your errors and thoughts and the errors of your society, is that you will be cured of mental stress. All the defenses we use are just a way to hang on to the stresses, but pretend that they're caused by somebody outside of us. And so, as you come to the practical, applicable teachings of the man named Yeshua, it becomes a fabulous understanding of the way that the universe, life works, in a way to be restored to our original human nature, the active presence of love. That's absolutely what we're here to support. Each mind, heart, and being on planet Earth being restored to. The absolute active presence of love, 24/7, 365. What a place to live. What a concept. Well, yeah, but what if all those people out there, those rageful people, those angry people, those hurtful people that are out there? Well, some bad news, folks. It's all done with smoke and mirrors. It's all an inside job. If I'm feeling hurt, pain, or the judgment of some form of they have a problem, then I'm creating an illusion of separation from my pain. But simply by doing so, reinforcing my pain and creating more of it. What we're looking to do is to be able to walk past that into this true human life that we're designed to live. And the active presence of love. And put an end to the atrocities, as Voltaire said. Convince a man to believe absurdities, you can make him commit atrocities. And so as we engage in the internal process of correction, we need to understand some basic facts about the human being and the way that the mind and the mechanics of so-called thinking work. What most people call thinking isn't thinking at all. If I say, don't think about the color of your car, most people say, well, now I'm thinking about it. But really, all that's happening is a law of resonance. I set up a frequency with my voice, it causes brain cells to fire. When those brain cells fire, it's the same as I take a middle C tuning fork, I hit it on the desk, I put it in front of a second tuning fork, and the second tuning fork starts to vibrate. Is the second tuning fork thinking? No. And most people's whole so-called thought process is governed by that simple law of resonance. And sadly, the truth is, if most said what they thought, they'd be speechless, because most have never been actually trained to think. We've been trained in an insane process that keeps us stuck in cycles. So cycling information to the past is not thinking. And by and large, passes for thinking in our culture is just cycling that information. If you're not acting in the active presence of love, your mind, I would offer, is designed to be fueled by love. Now, if you come up in the normal culture, that's a crazy thought. Who could ever do that? Well, one who could do that would be the one who chooses to do their work and chooses to work through everything within them that's less than love. So our definition of insanity is the mind without the active presence of love. And sadly, the insane, because they are so cut off from their creative source, oftentimes make a study of how to control and run the lives of the rest of the world. And fear is the major tool that's used. And, this whole idea that, love is coming to get you, it's keeping records on you, it's going to punish you, is just a fabrication of fear-based mind. The truth is, the Creator is the active presence of love, and just has such a space of love for you that it's awesome. There's nothing else there but the active space of love. And when each of us drops out of our fear-based mind, we drop into that mind of love, and everything in life changes. Everything in life becomes different. Jeanie looks like she has a question or a comment for us. Let me hear her.
Someone in the chat room wants you to talk about the breath work.
Sure, breath work. One of the processes we do is a process called still point breathing. And still point breathing is a way to use the breath to reopen those places that have been closed down. Now, if you go to the ancient story about the Pentecostal experience, we hear that the Greek translations say that the man named Yeshua breathed on them. I'm not sure what that would have produced. But in Aramaic, it doesn't say he breathed on them. What it says in Aramaic is he breathed to them. If you notice somebody in trauma, the first thing they do is to hold their breath. Holding the breath is the way that we stop the movement of energy, of those energies that we're putting into our structure. It's a way to separate and stay in a space of pain. And so still point is a way to open the breath and come back to the connected space that we as human beings are designed to live in. And as we're restored to that place of the connected breath, Tim, do you have, there's one of the other Beati-tudes in the way that the fellow who did the Way of Mastery translates it really puts in an awesome way the breath. Do you happen to have that handy?
I think it's the first one. He said the original King James Version is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And his interpretation of that is, now is the ripe time to make your home in the breathing unity. The fertile soil of the queendom will birth your clear guidance. Is that the one you were thinking of?
That's the one I was thinking of. So the breath is a way to be restored to wholeness. The holy breath isn't about being down on your hands and knees and holy. It's about being reconnected. And what happens when you're plugged back into the full breath is a level of energy moves in you that starts to flush out what never belonged. And hand in hand with the process of forgiveness. And if you're not familiar with what we're talking about with the forgiveness process, the world teaches us to lock ourselves into all kinds of pain and trauma, to blame somebody else for that pain and trauma, and then to forgive them, to let them off the hook, because we've locked pain and trauma within us. If we've locked pain and trauma within us, if we live in a culture that's taught us to buy into all this hostility and fear, has it done us one iota of good to let them off the hook because we did that to ourselves? It's crazy. That has nothing to do with forgiveness. Forgiveness is a tool with which you change the content of your own mind. If you're holding something that's less than love, then you're in a frequency, you're in a pattern that doesn't belong. And forgiveness is how you remove yourself from that pattern. If you're not familiar with the forgiveness tool, then what we suggest that you do is go to www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. The first 3 links will give you the total explanation of the forgiveness process. And, by the way, if you have any questions or thoughts for us, we would love your call-in. Our calling number is 646-200-4169. We'd love to hear from you and offer support if you have any questions on the use of the tools or anything to do with the work that we're doing. Again, our phone number is 646-200-4169. Call us. Ask a question. What are you thinking? What's the process that's going on for you? And that's the still point process and what we're working to do. We just actually with our intensive, this particular 9-day got through 3 still sessions with everyone.
Did you say you did 3 still point sessions?
Yeah, we got 3 still point sessions in, and it's actually early, like the second day, which we usually don't do still point until we get to day 4 or 5. In about the second day, it was just the energy was right to do still point, so we did that. And, pardon me, we did 2 still point sessions in it, not 3. My mistake. We did 2 still point sessions, one in the second day, and then we did another one the day before yesterday. So that was pretty powerful. Call us, 646-200-4169. What's your question about the work? What is it that doesn't make sense or that you could use some support with? We'd love to support you. Our purpose in doing MindShifters Radio is to support every mind, heart, and being on planet Earth in being able to be free of every form of hostility or fear that your bloodline and your culture has imposed upon you, that you, in your own errors and thought, have imposed upon yourself, and to bring about change, to bring about a shift into healing and wholeness, into the active presence of love. It is possible. It does not matter what you're facing. It does not matter what the circumstance is that you're in. It is possible to be fully, totally, completely restored, even in the face of somebody who you think is a raging maniac. Have you ever watched that happen with somebody, Tim?
Yes, as a matter of fact,
restoration from.
As a matter of fact, I absolutely, one of the concepts that you put out in your work has been so dramatic for me is the concept of humility, the idea of being able to identify the highest and best in another person and then choose to cooperate only with that. And the more I practice thinking of that, even when someone is coming at me crying very tearfully or angry at me, my ability is increasing in my ability to see the face of Christ in them, to see that they have the strength in them to handle whatever they're dealing with right now, so I don't feel like I have to rescue them, and I don't feel like I have to defend myself from them. And what happens when I hold on to that space and that set of ideas and that conscious awareness is so dramatically different than how I've handled these situations in the past in my life. It's just amazing how quickly things move and get transformed when I don't join in either treating that person as a victim or treating myself as needing to defend myself from them. Very powerful.
Awesome to get conscious of that, isn't it?
Absolutely awesome.
And, you know, if you go back and you listen to the brilliance of the teachings in the Aramaic, you hear a man who says, and I've heard people who scorn this piece of teaching as though some idiot must have sourced it, and it just belies or points out the ignorance of their own mind. You follow a guy who says you're supposed to love everybody, your neighbor, and, that hateful person across the road from you, you're supposed to love them. Are you some kind of an idiot? It's like, well, when you understand not the Greek idea, but the Aramaic idea of love your neighbor, it's got nothing to do with what you do toward your neighbor. When it speaks of the word that's actually used in Aramaic there is the word rachma. It says, have rachma for the creator, for neighbor, for self. What does that mean? Well, it's actually a filter in your own mind that keeps your lights on. That's like saying to somebody, there's a warehouse there, and in the warehouse there are several pits of vipers. The first law of going in the warehouse is turn the lights on. Now, would you say that if someone were going into a warehouse where there are several open pits with poisonous vipers in it, that it would be good advice to say, turn the lights on before you go in? I mean, it's obviously, the most basic advice you want to follow. You wouldn't want to go in there in the dark and stumble into one of those pits of poisonous vipers. Well, in precisely the same way, in Aramaic, Yeshua wasn't telling you to do anything toward your neighbor. He was saying, you have in you a light that you need to keep on. And if you keep that light turned on and you happen to come across some vipers, you know how to get around it. In fact, the there are people who do this thing of handling vipers, poisonous snakes, as a religious practice. But in Aramaic, when it talked about you'll be able to handle vipers, it was not about a religious practice. That was actually an Aramaic idiom. And the idiom, will be able to handle vipers, is it speaks about being able to deal with people who are vicious and mean and nasty, and that you will know how to interact with and deal with them if your lights are on. It's not about going out and getting snakes and, taking them into a church and letting them bite you and coming out the other side. A lot of people have died that way. It's not what it's about. It's an idiom. There's so many idioms in the Aramaic that have just been totally misinterpreted, totally misunderstood, and totally lost. And so that's one of them. It's not about handling snakes. It's about staying as the active presence of love. And I'm just looking in the chat room. Jeanie is still on the other phone.
I'm just answering some questions about still point.
Awesome.
The person appreciated your comments about breathing but was unclear about what the still point referred to.
Right. Yeah, the still point is an actual space where we move into a superconductor state that spontaneously the structure opens and moves into superconductor status, which is where you have the full active presence of love in every cell of your structure, and that full active presence of love is moving through your structure in a way that just huge quantities of things that never belonged to the structure are moving, are being released and liberated. So that's the actual still point, is where that space spontaneously opens. The barrier, when they spoke about in the ancient teachings, the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, that was another idiom. It wasn't about a purple curtain in a church. The temple is your structure, your body. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. You look at everybody, invariably, when there's something they don't want to deal with, they hold their breath. That's how you build a veil, a barrier into your temple, and you're able to hold yourself in an unconscious condition. That veil, that barrier, is built with the breath. That is resolved with the still point process. And the still point is the place where literally years and years and years of dissociated trauma move through the system in seconds. It's just high-speed, fast-forward process. Stuff just moves. And by the way, we are in intensive season here at Heartland, and if you're interested in taking your work to the next level, we're actually starting teachers training today. And that's a process that's only open to people who have done a 9-day intensive. So folks that are here just went through a 9-day. One gentleman headed on the road. He's actually coming back and registered for teacher training next year. But everybody that's here is moving in the direction of teaching, which is pretty awesome. And so they'll be moving into that starting tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll begin our opening session. And that'll go for 9 days. It finishes on August the 3rd, and then on August the 5th, we'll begin the Laws of Living, 16-day process for taking the work to the next level. So if anybody's interested in that. And then we're scheduled to do an intuitive development intensive, and that's where we spend 9 days in practical session with exercises for developing the faculty of being that was called intuition, the ability to gain access to information directly. So that's a workshop we'll do. Actually, at this point, it's questionable whether we're going to do that one. However, there are a couple of people who have indicated an interest, and if we get enough of a group who want to do it, then we'll probably move forward with intuitive development. That looks like a possibility. We'll see how it unfolds. Jeanie, any questions? Anybody on the chat room? Any? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So do you have anything to share from the intensive? No? Okay. Cool. Well, when we decided we were going to do our work, we need to understand how the structure works. And this whole body of work called Why Is This Happening to Me Again is a way to start to change long-standing, deeply ingrained, undesirable behaviors, sometimes generations in the making, which means they're actually things that are passed to us genetic. And again, the key tool for doing that is forgiveness. Forgiveness is a very simple process. It doesn't always come easily, and it is urgent in we humans that any unsound brain cell content, that is, content based in hostility or fear, be challenged and forgiven, removed from the structure. And, sadly, if you look back in the ancient teachings, there's this fellow named Paul who says, I do not understand what I do. Or what I want to do, I do not. And what I hate, I do. He didn't understand how to change the content of his own mind. We have uncovered from the Aramaic precisely how to do that. It's called forgiveness. And sadly, the tool disappeared very rapidly. And it disappeared because it's not a process that's easily understood when one lives in denial and doesn't want to deal with their lives. So to come out of denial becomes the key. And I think that the definition of forgiveness was shifted and changed from forgiving, changing the content of one's mind, to pardoning others, because if we stay in our hostilities and fears and we just let everybody else off the hook, we maintain our hostilities and fears, and the beat goes on. We blame those who resonate our hostility and fear, and by so doing, we never get to deal with the hidden and dissociated parts of our own mind. And what we're looking to do at this point is to bring forward that. Let me hand the phone to Jeanie. She's got a question for us.
We have a hand up on the board, and it doesn't show the whole number. It starts out with 85, so I'm not sure if that's the area code, but just part of it. You're on the air. Hello, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi,
Hold
Jeanie.
it for a minute.
How are you?
Hello, 865. How are you?
Hi. I just wanted to call in and give some great feedback about what a fantastic training we had in the Why Again workshop. And I'm just awed that in a short week I was able to make so many incredible transformations within myself. And if anyone's listening in, I'd just like to say might be something you may want to consider doing.
Cool. So do you mind if we introduce you?
Sure, go ahead.
If we introduce you? Cool. So this is Dayu. Dayu is a young lady from India who has been with us since, actually she came in a day or two late to the Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive, staying for teacher training. And so, Dayu, what would you describe as the biggest insight or breakthrough that you've created in this particular intensive at Heartland?
Well, we did an evaluation at the beginning, and in that evaluation, two of the challenges that I was facing was love of self and love of others. And in the process of the work that I did, I was able to amplify some stuff that was in my unconscious that I wasn't aware of. And as I brought that up and looked at it through MindShifters and worksheets and other tools, and then did some still point breathing, it gave me so much more of a clearer understanding that was just emotional garbage. And your explanation that this is coming from generations makes me feel very safe to just look at it and say it doesn't matter whether it's from me or from generations past. So there's a certain safety in looking at it and not feeling, overwhelmed that this is my own stuff or whatever. Whatever it is, it has to be cleared, because the beauty of what you've shared with us this morning in the Beati-tudes and the reading that you did just before one member of our team left today is just awed me as to the potential of where we can reach in our transformation process, our spiritual growth, to really be able to come to that place of truth. So then it just makes the work more exciting, and the breakthroughs, therefore, I think were made in those two areas to the greatest extent. And I want to share something that happened yesterday. There were a lot of intense emotions for everybody up yesterday. And as everyone came back from the break at 8 o'clock in the evening, I was feeling everyone's energy, and I realized it was resonating my tuning fork. In the past, I would have said it's all their stuff, I want to get away from them. But last night, I didn't say that. I just sat there and I said, I cancel my goal to protect myself from this energy. And the minute I did that, it was like my hearing got better, and I was able to listen to every word that the others were saying. And in that moment, it was like, wow, so this is what it feels like to be connected. I just felt so much more connected to each and every soul that was speaking yesterday. And it was just, I can't explain it. I haven't had that experience in a long time. I mean, I often feel I'm doing the wrong thing, and people don't always listen to me, but it was funny. All I did yesterday was listen to them, and it gave me such a sense of connectedness. So I would say my love of self and love of others is much greater just in let's see, I came Wednesday and started Thursday. So this is less than a week. In less than a week, the dramatic changes that I've seen in myself, I don't recall ever having had in any other workshop.
That's awesome. And of course, the game of those who would control others is to keep people in ignorance. And you go back to the ancient scriptures, and it says, for lack of knowledge, my people have been destroyed. And so people have been given dogma and doctrine that has very little to do with truth. And keeping people in ignorance is a very old tactic to keep them in servitude. Now, the average person who's been lied to and kept in servitude, and you can tell by the way they're treated, if they don't behave exactly the way that the master wants them to, the one who's trying to run the show, they get puked all over. And, you watch how that happens. But the average person who's been lied to and through ignorance been held in servitude, their first defense is, no. The captive says, no, people are fairer than that. That would never happen. And that's exactly what the mind of the captor wants the slave to think. That and it keeps people in prison. And dogmas and doctrines based in hostility or fear. And when you have knowledge, when you know how the structure works, the man named Yeshua said, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You're not going to be free unless you know the truth of how your mind operates. If you don't know how to consciously operate your mind, your body, your emotions, then what's going to happen is somebody else is going to operate it for you. So the tools are about how to get back to the truth about who we are and about how we function, and to really, truly function as a human being rather than a human doing, which is what the masters want us to function, human doing. And
it's been so awesome. And I want to add one more thing. On the physical level, I came to the workshop having brought my blood sugar down from 125 to 108, but I still wanted to bring it down lower. And the raw diet and the juicing that we've done, I just didn't think I would be capable of eating 3 raw meals a day and get through the day not feeling hungry. But actually I found on the days we were juicing, my stomach had shrunk. It was hard for me to drink a whole glass of juice at dinner time. It was too much. So it all goes to show how mistaken we are. I feel clearer in my mind. I feel lighter in my body. I have lost several pounds more, which is amazing. And I would love to just be able to check my blood sugar and see. I'm sure it's gone down to normal ranges. And I also want to report one more thing. Yesterday and today, I have not taken my blood pressure pills, and I have not taken the pill they gave me for my blood sugar either. I just haven't felt the need for it, So that's big transformation for me. So.
Right, and you want to keep an eye on those things and make sure that you stay in balance with it. And if you need that support as a measure to temporarily move into it, you want to make sure that you use the tools that you have, for sure. But you're right on track. It's an awesome process to lay hold of those things that never belong and to allow them to surface. Jeanie, anything happening in the chat room to be aware of, or any callers? No? Okay. Cool. Dayu, is there anybody else down around there where you are? That might want to share something with us about their experience in the intensive?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm in the other cabin with the computer room, so there's no one else here who's free to talk. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Do you have any more to? Do you have anything to share about what the teacher's training is going to be about? I'm so excited about that.
Well, teacher's training is actually designed for two purposes, and one of them is to deepen the principles of the forgiveness work of the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. So some people who don't really plan to teach will come and do that, and others who are actually going to teach will then become part of the process. And so teacher's training is going to be move in the direction of a study, an intensive study, just focused in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again principles and still point breathing. We'll do still point breath as we go through the process. And so we'll be presenting that in depth. We'll present the advanced reality management worksheet. And then the class as a group will produce a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. So there'll be another level of study and then feedback on the study to bring it forward.
Wonderful.
Area code 208. You want to just stay with us, Dayu? Area code 208 is on with the question or thought. Hello.
Hey, this
got
is
an name for us? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from taking a walk out on the road. Connie from the I was just
right, I got your voice.
Okay. When you asked if there was any other feedback, I was just going to add to what Dayu said, that the process has been outstanding. I've done a lot of your workshops that you present, in various towns that you go to, and the videos. But coming to Heartland the word intensive is very appropriate, because the environment and the food and, the continuous focus and the love of everyone here really does allow you to go to a much deeper level. I've had several insights about blockages that, even though I've really spent a lot of time doing worksheets and, trying to think, okay, what could I have that needs to be cleared, I've seen a number of things that I had never seen before, even though I was intentionally focused in trying to see those things. And then just, again, the environment in all of its ways just allowed me to get a lot of more communication directly from source, because, I'm in a clearer state than I, normally am. And so I was just going to add to what Dayu said, that how truly wonderful this has been, and allows you to go to a deeper level. Even though you think I'm going deep, this is deeper.
Awesome. So you're walking up the hill, are you? For those who, several of you probably heard Connie before on the radio show, but she's here at the teacher's training. So, is there anything, Connie, that in particular that you'd like to share that has been maybe one of your key or major breakthroughs?
Well, one of my blockages has been around relationships, and I've every conscious thing I could think of what issues have occurred. I've done worksheets on before, but there were some things that occurred when I was a small child that I just had completely forgotten. And, in trying to remember what could it be, I couldn't think of those things. And so, when you talk about the dissociated mind, it's dissociated and you can't see your stuff. There's nothing specific that, is relevant to share other than the fact that it does give you the ability to see it. And this week or 9 days so far, it's just I really did not understand the dissociated mind as well as I do now, because that's the whole game. It's trying to hide from you.
Yeah, that is, and it's awesome when you get into the field of a group of people who are willing to go there and open the space and hold the space, isn't it? It's just amazing how one person pops and it's just pop, 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 pop right down the line, and everybody gets to open around that particular issue, and the movement of energy is just amazing as people do that. It's pretty cool.
Well, as you said, I think the whole group has experienced instances where, they'll be sharing about an issue that has occurred for them, and that gives you your own aha. Oh, yeah, now I remember something similar or related occurred to me. So I see that everyone is benefiting from everyone else's work.
And we can wish and hope and promise that behavior is going to change. Everybody's heard the drunk after an atrocity was committed, and the next morning waking up and finding out what they've done and being in regret and terror and, oh, my God, I'll never do that again. And they sincerely mean that. But until one touches the mainspring of the behavior prompts, that's what's going to run it. And so the whole idea of the intensive is to open the space to get into the behavior prompts that are normally hidden. And all the wishing, all the hoping, all the promising that behavior is going to change is not going to create the slightest shift in behavior. Is there anything else to share yesterday for those who were on the show and listening? They heard you go through a process around your son. Have there been any other insights into that area?
Well, actually, yes. Last night when I was doing some other work, I could see smaller things that my dad did as my power person, the look, and I, knew he could give me the look, but I now recall, I could give Christian that look too, and just, small, not necessarily huge issues, but the behaviors around the issues, I can see how I have modified my power person's behavior and have done it myself in the past, where because it was slightly modified, I didn't see that I was doing the same thing. But when you get down to it, it's the same thing. I just put a different coat of paint on it and then called it something completely different. But as now I'm looking more clearly, I'm like, oh, well, that's the same thing. It's just, it's just a little different version, but it's the same thing.
Connie, we're now complete with the show. We just have gone into the end of it, so I'm going to turn it over to Jeanie to set up the closure, and maybe tomorrow we'll get to talk about this some more. Awesome work. Nice play. Everybody who's getting the best year out of your eternal life.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com. gmail.com.